Nairobi, and with my team we cover many of the countries of East Africa and up to the Horn with Somalia. Can I first acknowledge also the High Commissioner of Uganda to Australia, who's here with us this afternoon, and obviously here to share much more about Uganda than I can possibly do after being in the role for nearly a couple of years. But thank you very much for joining us too. So a few things I also wanted to just emphasise this afternoon, and as I've said in an article in the latest edition of our Business Envoy, East Africa is more than just wildlife and tourism, as wonderful as that is. And you know, I guess when many Australians think about East Africa, and I'm talking to a more converted audience than that already, but obviously people think of safaris, the Lion King, and those sort of images. There are parts of East Africa that are home to some of the greatest innovations that the world has seen, and M-Pesa, as Kim has mentioned, is one of those, the mobile money platform that was started in Kenya many years ago. So I want to just emphasise that what has struck me in the time I've been in the East African region is the innovation that has happened there, and things that have been created there that have been world leading. And besides a mobile money platform like M-Pesa, I also something I've yet to see myself, but it's on my list of things to do when I next go to Rwanda. There's a US company there called Zipline that is using drone technology to deliver blood supplies across Rwanda. Obviously, a relatively small country, landlocked, but using that technology to really deliver obviously a vital health need is just another example of the amazing work that's going on in the region. You've seen some statistics already today about the average sort of rates of economic growth. I feel we're all going to be doing a plug for our regions in Africa, but East African countries are averaging 5 to 7% annual growth at the moment. So I think that again, combined with the demographics, really tells a story that these countries are onwards and upwards. Regional integration as well. Some of you will know, of course, about the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. A country like Kenya and Kenya and Uganda, I have to point out, have also been leaders in the African continent around cross-border trade and promoting free trade. And the presidents of both Kenya and Uganda have done a lot together in the last couple of years, certainly, and I know before that, to really push free and open trade across the borders. And I think that's really vital to the landlocked countries in Eastern Africa, that they know they can have this free movement of goods and services and get to ports, of course, in Kenya and Tanzania in particular. And I just wanted to mention a few perceptions and realities for East Africa. And I've mentioned sort of the view that I suppose many of us have held about countries of East Africa and the tourism side, but I do want to touch on a few things, and that's addressing some perceptions around security in Eastern Africa. And as I said yesterday in the ADU plenary session here in a Meet the Hom session, often that makes the headline news. And that you only have to talk to the Australian companies that are operating in Eastern Africa to know that with the right precautions, with the right security measures, they're able to operate very well. And you see that in the case of Base Titanium, of course, subsidiary Base Resources, West Perth Company, the biggest mine in Kenya, and other companies that are doing very, very well in Eastern Africa. So of course we all need to take security seriously, but it's not it's certainly not a hindrance to companies doing business if they take the right security measures and precautions. Corruption, I need to mention it. Sometimes the elephant in the room. Often potential investors will look at some countries around the world and say, well, I'll just hear a bit about corruption, etc. Can I just emphasise that I've been very impressed by the efforts by governments in the region that I work in to address corruption, the corruption issue, which of course is entrenched, but there's real steps towards making these countries much a clean country and therefore ripe for further private sector investment, as well as obviously being great for the delivery of services to the people. So we're seeing some really good measures being taken on that anti-corruption agenda. Others are already there. Yes, that's true. Of course, for a country like Kenya, there are many UK companies operating in a whole range of sectors. Obviously, there's a history there. And some of those companies obviously have been there for a long time. There are Dutch companies. There are obviously last year a range of new US investors committed to new programs and projects and activities in Kenya in particular. But there's plenty of room for Australian companies, and I do emphasise that. And the chair of the British Chamber of Commerce in Kenya has said to me that he's more than happy for members of the Chamber of Commerce, the British Chamber of Commerce, to reach out to Australian companies, either those who are already there, or of course those who come in and seek to get to know a bit more about Kenya and the other countries in East Africa. That's just a great source of knowledge as well, and I really encourage companies to take up that offer if you're interested in talking to other investors that are already there. Obviously, there's been some challenges around some of the regulatory environments in East Africa, but companies, if you've got the staying power and are willing to be patient and work with the governments and make sure, obviously, that you're engaging at the various levels of the political system and with communities, then you'll find that pays dividends in the end. There is lots of planning. Some may perceive countries in East Africa not necessarily maybe have strong planning agendas. They do. I'll mention, for instance, the Kenyan Big Four development agenda, and that is really seeking to increase manufacturing, affordable housing, food security and universal health care. And increasingly the countries of East Africa are wanting quality, and Australian companies bring quality. And we're seeing a growing middle class in these countries, so the demand for premium products and quality is only going to get stronger and stronger, and Brand Australia is terrific delivering on that. I think there's obviously lots of opportunities. We have a big trade relationship with Kenya in cut flowers. Australia is one of their prime destinations for cut flowers, so those of you who buy flowers for Mother's Day or Valentine's Day, if you're buying roses, then chances are they're probably Kenyan roses. So that's great, and we hope to see that continue. But you've already heard today, METS, I know the Ugandan government is very keen on Australian companies to provide mining equipment, technology and services. You've heard about the medical side as well. Obviously, value addition, tea, coffee, companies can really make strong inroads there. So, and there is a relatively new Australia-Kenya Chamber of Commerce as well. It has its base here in Perth, and they've recently established in Kenya.